There have been reports that the UK Ministry of Defence is in the midst of yet another budget crisis, suffering from the challenge of trying to link ambition to fiscal reality. The rumours point to major cuts in an effort to make the books balance, and the outcome will be justified through another mini-strategic defence review, whose findings will conveniently align with the proposed savings measures. Many commentators, particularly politicians in Westminster, are calling for the MOD to be given more cash to balance its books and save it from cuts, using a new target of 3% of GDP as a budget aspiration. There are whispers that the new Secretary of State is minded to ask for more money, unhelpfully denied by the permanent Under-Secretary, who said he is not aware of any formal ask for more. Politically, there is a sense that more spending on defence would be welcomed, particularly on Conservative backbenchers keen to differentiate themselves from a Corbyn-led Labour Party unlikely to be friends of defence. Gavin Williamson himself has said he sees 2% as a floor, not a ceiling, for defence expenditure. The autumn budget made almost no reference to defence beyond confirming a small real terms growth in both capital and resource spending in line with prior commitments. The next window to do so is when the review's findings are announced, and Whitehall commentators appear to believe that this is the opportunity for the Chancellor to find sufficient headroom to bail defence out of its problems. Does the MOD actually need more money though? It may be heresy to challenge the popular view that defence requires more cash, but there is strong evidence to suggest that the last thing the armed forces need is additional resources. As a department, the MOD enjoys the combination of both a very generous budget settlement with commitments to real terms growth and significant delegated authority to spend its money as it judges fit without Treasury approval. Many Whitehall departments look on with scarcely concealed envy at what they perceive to be a resource-rich department flush with cash. The MOD likes to perceive itself as a department that is struggling financially, but it has the potential to take radical changes that would free up resources for better use. The problem is that these changes are often unwelcome, and rely on changes that either threaten local fiefdoms or would enrage supports of the armed forces. A simple change that could be made would be to rationalize and radically reduce the numbers of uniforms and accoutrements worn on them. Every beret, badge and recognition flash produced requires a contract, which in turn has staff who need to run it. Many British Army units in particular insist on wearing all manner of items on their uniform, none of which play any part in helping defeat the enemy. The MOD could save significant sums if it moved to simplified headgear, one cap badge per service, and abolish the plethora of badges that adorn jackets. This may be a minor change, but it is a critical one in sending a message that the MOD is serious about cultural change to ensure every penny for defence is spent wisely. A similar proposal could be made to abolish the regimental system and instead administer all army units in the same way. Traditionalists suggest that the regiment is the core of fighting ethos, but in an army where, with the exception of the Household Division and Parachute Regiment, every infantry regiment has been amalgamated in some way, what matters to the soldier is his mates, not whether the unit's distant predecessors fought a battle in 1744 or not. There remain many parts of the MOD where amalgamation could sensibly occur with minimal risk. The security infrastructure remains confused with three different organizations: MOD Police, MOD Guard Service and Military Provost Guard Service, all providing security, usually on the same site. While each has different roles, it represents scope to rationalize overheads and more efficiently guard sites. There are multiple single-service organizations that could be fused together, for instance the physical training instructor branches, or the tri-service police services. These could be brought together into a single organization, which would make better use of manpower and reduce costs. More money can be saved by amending the manpower bill. The single biggest cost to defense is an annual wages bill of almost £9 billion for military personnel. The package is generous compared to many employers, but also has many legacy elements in it that don't always reflect modern life. The business of the mod needs to be inflicting violence on the enemy and not maintaining 19th-century warehouses. A simple way to significantly reduce costs would be to link acquisition of certain benefits to people who have served over a certain length of time. There is a high dropout rate at the 6 to 8 years service point, with many junior personnel leaving. If the benefits package currently available from entry was refined, so that many retention-positive allowances such as service housing, or boarding school allowance were only payable to personnel with 8 years service or more, then it not only saves money on paying it to people who will in all likelihood leave early, but it also becomes a retention offer in itself. People looking to leave at the 6 to 8 year point will suddenly have the carrot of a significantly improved reward package for staying on. This helps retain staff at the junior and senior NCO level who may otherwise leave and ties them into staying longer. This saves money and hopefully improves retention on the staff you wish to keep. Service housing is also a potential area for vast savings. The mod is the only employer in the UK which still provides large-scale housing for most of its employees, incurring large costs in running many domestic services. In the 21st century, why should the mod provide housing for families? The time is surely right to pay for a service member's local accommodation, e.g. good quality, single living accommodation, and the transport costs to, from home. Perhaps it is time for the mod to be clear that an individual's family location is the business of the individual and not the state. Such a move would be controversial and need slow phasing in, but could generate significant savings in the medium term to help fund higher priority needs like equipment. The final area where defense could save money is massive rationalization of the defense estate. The services are significantly reduced from 1990 levels, yet the training estate has barely been touched. Across the country, the mod retains large swathes of land which contain thousands of historic, often listed, buildings needing maintenance. It has a surplus of capacity and no chance of ever realistically needing much of it again. The department could commit to significant further rationalization, such as closing Plymouth Naval Base, or merging BRNC Dartmouth, Pictured, and HMS Raleigh. For the Army, there is potential to do more to create super garrisons, while the RAF still operates dozens of major and relief airfields, even if it only has fast jets based at 3 of them. Reducing the estate will be tough, particularly as MPs protest the loss of local skilled jobs, but it helps reduce running costs and puts the department on a sustainable long-term footing. The business of the mod needs to be inflicting violence on the enemy and not maintaining 19th-century warehouses. All of these suggestions reflect the view expressed by many Whitehall insiders that the mod is seen as flush with cash and still overly bloated. The persistence in maintaining large organizational and administrative functions which could be rationalized, coupled with the seeming reluctance to countenance real change, makes it hard to justify more money, while other departments are struggling. For instance, the Foreign Office is experiencing a substantial budget cut next year. The mod has to play a careful game. There is undoubtedly a need for extra resources on some projects, but to appeal to Home Treasury effectively, it has to show that every penny of efficiency has been squeezed out of the existing budget. Why should the department get more cash if it isn't getting maximum value from its existing budget? At the same time, it will require careful communication with supporters and stakeholders to set the conditions where people support the ruthless change required. Explaining that the LOMS's distinct uniform or HQ structure needs to be sacrificed to persuade the Treasury to provide more cash for Joint Strike Fighters will not be an easy task. Just look at the strength of feeling over amalgamating the Fusiliers a few years ago. If the MOD is serious about showing why it needs more resources, it needs to be utterly ruthless in cutting, changing and creating a new military. Until it does this, the case for more money seems weak, and likely to fail. Given the institutional reluctance across all three services to facilitate real change, it is hard to justify spending more on defense until it puts its house in order. Back to news. Share to Facebook, Twitter. LinkedIn. Qatar and the UK have signed a contract for the provision of 24 Eurofighter Typhoon aircraft for the Qatari Air Force. This deal takes the Lockheed Martin has test-fired production configuration long-range anti-ship missiles LRASM from a U.S. Air Force B-1B bomber. The test, conducted over the sea for 73 days from June-August, Indian and Chinese troops faced off across the Himalayas in the worst border confrontation in years. At Doklam, and unremarkable. The UK Defence Committee has expressed its lack of confidence in the Ministry of Defence's MOD ability to realise extensive efficiency targets essential for the As the fourth edition of Gulf Defense and Aerospace comes to a close, Shepard's Grant Turnbull casts a look back at some of the main. There is a persistent fantasy amongst the political and military elite in Taipei and Washington that China has too much to lose if it invaded.